moderator this evening. I'm so honored to be here and really looking forward to hearing everyone's vision. I do want to start by giving a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land that we have gathered to discuss is the traditional territory of the Wiyot tribe. We would like to go ahead and mute yourselves, folks, friends in the Zoom. I meant to say that earlier. Go ahead and mute yourselves until you're speaking, and we'll talk more about Zoom here in just a second. But this is the traditional territory of the Wiyot tribe. We would like to recognize and respect these indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of this land. And we'd like to start to support the enduring relationship that exists between indigenous communities and their traditional lands. One way that we can do that is through an honor tax. You can look up the way to do that on honortax.org, I believe. The honor tax is a way of recognizing and respecting the sovereignty of Native nations and implementing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We are doing this wonderful forum on Zoom for the first time, which may have interesting elements that are new to all of us. One of the pieces that we will need to sort of navigate here is the hide non-video participants thing. So what we're going to do is there are a few ways to do this. Deanna is going to go ahead and post in the chat. And oh yeah, no, it's right here, the screen share. So if you can hide, there are a few ways to hide your own video. And let's see, if you can right click on your own video, you can also click, there are maybe 3 dots at the top of your video, or on a Mac, you can just click the video and hide your video, stop video. And then once that is done, you can click on any hidden video, the little 3 dots in the corner, and click hide non-video participants. That way, so we're asking folks who are not candidates, who are here as support or who are here as observers, to go ahead and hide your videos so that we have just our candidates in the frame, in the visual. And like I said, Deanna Fletcher is our tech support, and we are very, very thankful for her. You can reach out to them directly through the chat, I believe. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So these groups, I believe 11 groups have been working together on candidate forums since 2018. Many of our goals and missions overlap, and we collaborate on other events and issues as well. We are intending to build a movement of movements, and we want to give the candidates an opportunity to learn more about the issues that are affecting the community so that they can better serve all of us. We invited every candidate who qualified for the ballot. Those who are not here chose not to be here. I'd like to introduce our candidates. We have Katie Moulton, and this is all for Ward 2. I'll start with Ward 2, Katie Moulton, Dot Yeager Wentworth.
I know, I got a question. How do you unhide your video?
Oh, do you want to, did somebody ask about, say that again?
No, I hid my video. I just tried it, and then I can't get it back. How do I get back?
Well, we see you. Do you not see you?
I don't see me.
Oh, how odd. Well, this would be a great time for tech support to connect with you and make that maybe better for you. So let me go back to, so we had Katie Moulton, Katie wave. We have hello. Dot Yeager. Dot can say hello. We have Lucinda Jackson is not here. She declined the offer to join the forum this evening, saying that many of the groups participating in this forum are not interested in the best for Eureka citizens, but rather working for the will of special interest groups. and so she is not with us this evening. In Ward 4, we have Scott Bauer. We have Eddie Morgan.
Hello.
Liza Welch.
Good evening. Hi.
Bill Tuttle. And Matthew Owen.
Good evening.
Candidates will have 1 minute to answer a question presented by one of the groups, by each of the groups this evening. And they will be given, Caroline Griffith is going to go ahead and be our timekeeper and will let us know when it is time to wrap it up. So we're going to go ahead and get down to business. Let's get to the first group. I'd like to introduce the Eureka chapter of the NAACP. And this we'll start with, we'll have the question played via video, and then Katie will be the first one to answer after the question is asked.
Not getting sound here.
Yeah, give us
Okay.
1 moment. And while we're figuring that out really quickly, I'd like to just give the candidates a lot of gratitude for being here in such a strange and new platform. Thank you for everyone who is joining us and observing this in a new and strange platform. We have all found ourselves in a place that we have never been before. And so doing something we've never quite done before. So lots of thanks for that.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Blank. I'm the president of the Eureka NAACP. The question I have for the candidates this evening is, what concrete changes would you make to policing policies for the Eureka Police Department to make things safer for people of color? And we're looking for very specific, detailed ideas that you have that can be implemented. Thank you.
And we'll start with Katie, and you have 1 minute.
Hi there. Thank you so much. The first thing that I think we need is a citizen oversight board. There's a concrete thing that can put some eyes on the cops and an external review that can help keep people safer. We also need to be taking tasks out of the police hands that they are not trained or qualified for. Eureka has some really great examples of, say, mental health outreach or crisis intervention teams working in tandem with the police or completely separately from the police. But basically handling those situations where sending a person with a gun is just not the right answer. I think that anybody, in addition, who works with a public-facing job, or really anybody, should be working on racial equity training. There's some really great trainings available locally and nationally. There's lots of great resources out there to start difficult conversations and to let people, start having those really honest looks inward and looking at institutional racism as it actually hits the ground where we are. We want to work to have people trying to be better, always better practices, and looking at themselves and looking at their agencies.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move on to Dot, and you have 1 minute.
Dot, you may be muted.
That's better, huh?
Better.
Go ahead and we'll begin your minute.
Okay. I agree with Katie. We definitely need more people in the police department, like social workers, people that can deal with the drug addiction, alcohol, and no guns. But I still think we need police officers in Eureka. The mental health is a major issue in this town. That drug addiction, it's terrible. So that's about all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Dot. Moving on to Scott Bauer.
I agree with Katie. And I think we already do have a citizen advisory council, panel, commission, but it needs to be codified. We need an ordinance that specifically requires it, and that it's.
Can you hear Scott?
Can't hear it.
Scott, would you go ahead and we'll start your minute over. If you wouldn't mind speaking up, I think that your speaker situation may not be ideal and you might have to do some actor projecting. I think you might be actually quieter than you were a moment ago. So let's just one moment. I'll let you take a moment and maybe look into that for just a second and take a breath to gather yourself. And I'm going to move on to Liza, and then we'll come back to you, Scott, in just a moment.
Thank you. I think that when we're considering this issue, we need to start out by centering and really listening to the voices of people of color and letting them lead this discussion. In what I have heard from people of color who are involved in the movement to reform the police, I do agree that we need independent citizen oversight. And I would like to add that I think that a citizen oversight board should be representative of the communities who are most impacted by interactions with law enforcement, and comprised of people from those communities. So it's not enough to just have this symbolically. It needs to be deep and transformative, and it needs to include people of color.
Time.
Thank you so much. Scott, do you think you might be ready? You want to try one more time? It's still not happening. Darn. Well, I'm going to, if you can connect with Deanna as tech support, just for a moment, and then I'm going to add you to the end of this. So I'm going to go Eddie and then Matthew, or Bill, Eddie, and then Matthew, and then we'll come back. All right, so go ahead, Bill.
I'm not sure exactly what the police training is. I don't think it's long enough. I know they go to the academy, but I don't think the academy is providing enough support for training for diversification of the people that they deal with. I know their job is tough, so I honestly don't know just how deep they go into the training and to deal with all the situations and the people that they go to. So that's really something I'd like to look into and see whether it can be expanded and to help some of these problems.
Thank you so much. And then Eddie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I think working with organizations such like the police, it's about training. And if you're going to have good training, you need to have good representation from all groups. And especially since we have different communities that feel that they're not being treated justly, they must need to be on the training committees and the people that come up with the training. So that's number one. Number two, we need to have people that are in social work and preventative care and things of that nature to assist the police, so we don't always have somebody with a gun coming to a situation. I think that's very American, and in a lot of other countries, there's a very different point of view and harm reduction. And so those are the things we need to do. We need to work on training. We need to amplify the scope of people that assist people, and then have people in the right training capacities to make sure that everybody is treated equitably. Thank you.
Thank you. And Matthew?
First off, I'd like to thank the various community groups for inviting us here tonight. I do believe nothing's more important than an informed electorate. Some points I have is I'd like to see us recruit more people of color to be officers on the street, both Black and Hispanic. Two, the EPD currently has body cameras, but they're looking in the budget to actually put cameras on the cars so they can actually film any interactions with the public. As the saying goes with the Bob Woodward's book, it's hard to argue against an audio tape or a videotape. I also agree that we should have a citizens oversight board. I think that's kind of necessary to go out there to give input to various people. And finally, since 20 to 25% of our calls for service to the Eureka Police Department are for people with mental illness or homeless, I'd like to see a whole lot more social workers out on the streets dealing with them, similar to what Eddie said, is they don't need to be seeing a gun. They need to be seeing a human being who could address their needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott, we can try one more time and then I have Nat. No. Any luck? Oh man, goodness. I don't know if we have Caroline and Deanna, I've sent you both chats on this. I'm not sure if the chat is set up in a way, Scott, that you can type into the chat, but if it is, we might be able to do it that way. So go ahead. Okay, there is Deanna with our tech just posted the phone number for assistance, and she can connect with you on that. Thanks so much for being patient and flexible, and we appreciate it. We're going to move to the next group. The next question is from Centro del Pueblo.
Hello, my name is Octavio Acosta, and I am with Centro del Pueblo. Our question is, undocumented members of our society, like all other members, have experienced the psychological, economic, and health effects of the pandemic this year. Additionally, we also pay the taxes that all community members pay as far as labor and sales taxes. However, we cannot rely on the safety nets such as unemployment benefits and the emergency stipend check that came in that the US government provides to all other documented citizens. Now, the pandemic, coupled with the standard racialized violence from members of the white community that seem to be justified by many local and federal agents of government, have put the undocumented community in Humboldt County in challenging times. How do you see yourself using your political platform to incorporate the voices, the worries, stories of experienced violence, labor and renter rights violation, the dreams and the solutions, and performing the necessary actions, campaigns towards social justice and equity of the undocumented Latinx Southern Indigenous community? How will you hold yourself accountable and accessible to our community needs? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll start with Liza Welch.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to reiterate, that undocumented people make vital contributions to our economy and to our society. I have had the privilege of working with undocumented people. I've been in school with DACA students who have educated and at times gently called me out and corrected me. Recently, I helped Cooperation Humboldt find somebody who could do Spanish language translation for the course series on worker-owned co-ops. I think that translation is vitally important. We need to make sure that our city services are fully accessible. We need to make sure that we have translators ready who can help people to navigate through these government processes, and that those translators are appropriately paid for the important service that they are providing. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll move to Dot Yeager Wentworth.
Well, my first question is, why haven't these people gotten documented yet? That would be my very first question. I know it's a major process because I helped some people in the grocery business get documented. I wonder what takes them so long to do the paperwork. And that's about it. I don't really have anything else to say. I feel sorry for them, but I don't really have anything else to say. I think they should have medical. They should have everything that we have. But you know, why is it you're not getting documented? That's what I want to know from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Bill Tuttle.
Well, I spent 26 years of my life defending this country and protecting the people in it. Whether you're documented or not, you have the right to be protected, to live a safe life, to get what you need to do. And hopefully that people will be able to help you out to carry it further. I will make myself available. I will do everything I possibly can to help people. I've already helped a couple of people who worked for me to become documented and get their green cards and to get all their benefits. But even though you don't, we still have to help those people to have a good quality of life. So I would do everything possible within my powers as a councilman to help those people out.
Thank you. And Eddie Morgan.
So I'm on the I'm on the Human Rights Commission, and the city of Eureka is a sanctuary city. I'm on that process. So if somebody applied, and I would continue supporting that. Another thing, and I'm going to say it in Spanish, and then I will translate it, es muy importante que todos nosotros comprendemos que podemos hablar con la gente que está gobernando. Y esa gente tiene que escuchar a la gente hispana y Latinx. What I said was, I think it's very important that the population knows that they can talk to people in power, and very much like my fellow Marine friend said there, everybody's being protected, and that we will listen and help people because we're all human beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. Matthew Owen.
Great question. While the pandemic hit everybody hard, it's hit the undocumented especially hard because they didn't have access to unemployment, and especially didn't have access to the $600 supplemental weekly unemployment that a lot of people out there got. So I empathize with them. It's been a bad situation for them. One thing I think the city can do is stress the services available to them, whether it's food for people, because no one should go hungry in our country, whether it's the pro bono legal services by the Legal Services of Northern California. I definitely, like someone brought up the point that medical is always available to them. And on our current law enforcement, our Humboldt County Sheriff says no ICE is at the jail. So they don't have to have concerns about federal officers showing up checking immigration status. Best we can do on the local level is communicate how we can help them through these things that are available to them. I wish we can control more of what's going on with the federal, but unfortunately we just can't. So that'd be my answer there. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And Katie Moulton.
Some great answers coming out here from my fellow candidates. I'm really happy to be living in a sanctuary city. There never should be anywhere where someone can't ask for help when they need it because of their immigration status. I think that one of the most effective things that the city can do, besides providing language translation services and making sure that people are safe and have access, is to encourage and coordinate the efforts of groups like English Express that meet people where they are and do English language services, and other groups that are helping to connect the Latinx community and the immigrant community with resources that already exist in a way that they find safe and accessible.
Thank you, Katie. And Scott, are we in a talking position yet?
Can you hear me?
Yay!
Yes.
That's wonderful. Go ahead and answer this question, and then we will also give you a chance to answer the previous question as well.
I had to switch computers, so I didn't even hear the question. I'm sorry.
That's great. The question is, let's see, I have it right in front of me. Undocumented members of our society, like all other members, have experienced the psychological, economical, and health effects of the pandemic this year. Additionally, they also pay taxes that all community members pay as far as labor and sales taxes. However, they cannot rely on the safety nets, unemployment benefits, emergency stipends, etc., that the U.S. government provides to all other documented citizens. Now, the pandemic, coupled with standard radicalized violence from members of the white community that seems to be justified by many local and federal agents of the government, have put the undocumented community in challenging times. How do you see yourself using your political platform to incorporate the voices, worries, stories of experienced violence, labor, and renters' rights violations, dreams, and solutions, and performing the necessary actions, campaigns towards social justice, equity of the undocumented Latinx Southern Indigenous community? How will you hold yourself accountable and accessible to the community's needs?
Well, I think as a city council person, we all need to be accessible all the time. What we need to understand is Hispanic population works as hard as anyone on the planet. And that's the first thing to understand is that, hardworking people and people come to our country because they're seeking happiness, just like the rest of us. They're seeking food, shelter, and homes for their family. And we need to recognize that, right? I think, maybe it was Matt that said, we can't control what the feds are going to do, unfortunately. But I think our community is very open, and I will do my part to be as helpful and approachable, so that we can try and give these people some hope and some help where they deserve it, and they do deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And without going too far back, would you like to address the first question?
I would. It was my understanding that we already do have an advisory panel of sorts for to oversee our police department. And the problem is that we need to codify it. We need an ordinance that specifically clearly lays out what that oversight committee would do, who's on it. I think the idea is that the chief would select people, but ultimately the city council has responsibility to approve of those people. So that is a really important part of how we're going to address inequity. I also think that panel needs to be subject to the Brown Act, so that we all can see what's going on. It's transparent, and it protects our community, our people of color. And that's the most important thing, is accountability and proper training for our police. They should all be trained in implicit bias. It should happen every year. And in reality, our police force should be trained 10% of their time or more should be training. And I'm talking about all sorts of training, but that I think is the first step, is a panel that oversees them.
And that is your, thank you so much, Scott. And we're glad your sound is working. Thanks everyone for patience and acceptance and understanding. Bringing in our next question from Humboldt County Transition Age Youth Collaborative, Defund Humboldt PD, and Humboldt Area for Harm Reduction.
I'm Alexis. I'm a Youth Advocacy Board member of HGTAC, the Humboldt County Youth Collaboration. And the question I am asking is from HGTAC, Hatcher, which is Humboldt Area Center for Harm Reduction, and Defund Humboldt Police Group. We are looking for elected leaders who focus on creating a structure of care and compassion that requires us to envision what a healthy community looks like. We are looking for someone who ensures that resources and processes are molded to fit the different aspects of the community, as opposed to our current one-size-fits-all approach. With that vision in mind, how would the city budget reflect this? Will this involve supporting harm reduction resources through Hatchet? Does this include supporting reallocation of any portion of police funding or repurposing the new juvenile hall being built?
All right, we'll go ahead and ironically on the top of the list for this question is going back to Scott Bauer.
I didn't hear everything she said. She kept breaking up too. Just to let you know.
It was a little broken up. Gonna take a second to.
The question is also posted as a visual there in the screen share if you need to take another look at it.
Yeah, give me a second here. Well, that's a really good question. We need to support harm reduction in the city. I know there's been some concern about HACHR and what took place, but it's in some fashion, we do need to maintain harm reduction, a one-for-one needle exchange. Maybe it's mobile services, it's delivered, it's through outreach that we accomplish that. As far as reallocation of the police budget or a portion of the police funding. I think what we have going on with, CSET, looking at, or what do you call it, community safety enhancement team. I like the way that's going, excuse me, and I think we should expand on that. We should be looking for opportunities to reduce, armed response, like I think was said earlier. There's ways to handle issues without police, and if we need to look at the budget and reallocate, and hopefully Measure H will help us with additional funds so that we can do things that improve everyone's lives, especially youth. We should do that. And as far as the repurposing of a new juvenile hall, why not look at that when we get that thing finished?
Thank you so much. And next up is Liza Welsh.
Thank you. Firstly, to speak to the budgeting, I am in support of participatory budgeting. I think that we need to do more to bring the community into conversations around the budget, on budgeting priorities, and on how funding will be allocated. Secondly, yes, harm reduction works. It's a proven public health approach. It prevents the spread of communicable diseases, and it's the most compassionate approach. I think to look at the problems that we're facing, we need to look at the whole person within their social context. So not just does somebody use substances, but why or what struggles are preventing people from having the lives that they want to have. And then we need community-based solutions. Certainly the juvenile hall could be repurposed to something that is more of a community center for youth. But that discussion and that design should be driven by the youth.
Thank you. Bill Tuttle.
Well, that's a tough question. I mean, it's all encompassing. There's a lot of things that fall into it. The budget is going to depend on a lot of things of the income that we have coming in, and for the next year or two, it may not be that well. We need to look at the priorities, see what we can do, but the compassion for people should always be at the forefront of what we're trying to do. That's what we are, a community, and we need to take care of our community the best that we can. I can't really say the best approach to it. Haven't been involved in it that much. I would be willing to get into it very much and find out all the aspects and talk to the people that have the knowledge. And that's the whole point, is bringing people together, getting ideas and coming up with a workable solution that is also an affordable solution that the city can have done. And those are the things that all runs by the budget. I mean, there's lots of things we would love to do, but sometimes there just isn't enough money to take care of all the little things. And it doesn't mean we don't care. It just means that we have to take care of the more important things first. And hopefully there's something left over to do something for the other points.
It's your time. Thank you so much. Matthew Owen.
I'm 100% in favor of harm reduction for two simple reasons. It saves lives and it saves money. Not only is it going to save someone's life, but the sharing of needles can cause infections, hepatitis, AIDS. So anything we could do to cut down on the diseases being spread. If ultimately they do get a disease, they're going to the hospital, and who's going to pay the bill? So think of that. Even if you don't like the heroin, which I don't think any of us do, I would rather have someone not get sick. Second thing, I'm going to be a little contrarian here. I'm not in favor of defunding the police. I'm in favor of increasing the budget for the police. I'd like to see more money being spent on not only social service workers on the streets, but also on cameras on our cars. Anything that's going to give accountability. I work in a bank and we have cameras on us everywhere. So we realize don't do anything stupid because you're on camera. And I think I'd like to have the police officers understand that too. Not that Eureka PD doesn't have a bad reputation. We're not St. Paul, Minnesota here. So we have great officers out in the streets, but it just gives additional accountability to the public, which I think is important. Finally, with juvenile hall, that's a county issue. So the city's not going to have a lot to say.
That was your time. Thank you so much. Katie Moulton.
I absolutely support harm reduction programs. When I first moved here, the first job I got was a community health outreach worker with the Raven Project. It was my job to not only crawl around under bridges to find people, to take bleach kits out into the Devil's Playground, and to have really honest, judgment-free conversations with people about their risk behaviors. And that's what it takes, treating people like human beings, like somebody that deserves to survive their addiction long enough to get clean, is what really matters. So I would always support harm reduction as a process. I believe that anything that we do that involves the youth needs to be youth driven. The Tay Center is really great about bringing in youth voices to set policy and to work on how things actually work. I think that adding in job training and access to opportunities, mostly through coordinating other agency efforts. The city doesn't have a lot of money to meet all of these rainbows of needs, all of these different kinds of people in different situations, but there are niche groups serving very specific people, for very specific reasons. The city should coordinate those efforts and try to make them more efficient and accessible.
And that's your time. Thank you so much. And Dot Yeager Wentworth. Oh, Dot, if you're
I agree with everything everybody said. Bill said a really good thing about the budget. We're not going to have any money. I believe in harm reduction. I think it works too. I believe in the needle exchange. Maybe we can get some of our churches to help us out during a budget crisis. That's something I would look at if I'm on the city council. And that's about it. I think the juvenile thing is very, very important. You know, we, like Katie said, we definitely need to put money and time into our youth.
Thank you, Dot. We're going to move on to our next question. We have, this next question is coming to us from the Affordable Homeless Housing.
Not going to ask me a question?
Oh, did I leave someone out?
Yes.
Did I miss? I've got a list here I'm dancing around. I'm so sorry. And I can't see all the candidates at once. Did I miss Eddie? I'm
Yes.
so sorry. Hi, Eddie. It's your turn.
Thank you very much. And I know these things are very difficult. So harm reduction is a part of public health, and public health pays in dividends. And we have to look at all the good things that it does. And I think what's really important when we look at youth and look at other things is look at the recidivism rates of the different programs and how they're actually doing, what the cohorts are doing. And so do we want to invest in the youth? Definitely. But we also want to see what's working. So not only do we want to do harm reduction, but we also want to monitor how these programs are working. And it could be in the long run too, because a lot of times these programs take 5 to 10 years, but we need to have those systems in place so that we know we're moving forward to success and actually helping the youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to the next question. This comes to us from the Affordable Homeless Housing Alternatives.
Good evening. My name is Nezzy Wade, and I'm representing Affordable Homeless Housing Alternatives, better known as AHA, this evening. My question for you, or our question for you, is COVID-19 and the recent years of wildflowers have continued to illuminate and exacerbate Humboldt County's housing crisis. While there are several low-income housing units going up in Eureka and elsewhere, most of them are still unattainable for those who have been chronically homeless, who have been unable to access case management support through the county, or those who are just above the low-income threshold but still can't afford regular housing. What is your position on alternative housing models, such as tiny home villages, safe camping, legal campgrounds, and safe parking, which can provide shelter and community to individuals who can't access traditional low-income housing? Would you be willing to work with local nonprofits interested in building these models in our community?
Right, we're going to go ahead and start with Bill Tuttle.
Well, yes, and it's something that I have thought about quite a bit. I think it's a great idea, but there's plenty of problems. Who pays for the power? Who pays for the garbage? Who pays for the sewer? And those are problems, humps that we have to get over to do it. And where do we put them? that they are safe and there are still attainable to get to bus lines and things like this to get to their appointments or what they have to do. But I believe we need to find some low rent housing or some really small affordable housing. They've done it in other cities, and we need to talk with them, see how they did it, how they afford it, and what we can do to maybe try to do some of the same things. It's something that we need to have to do.
Thank you, Bill. And we're going to move to Liza Welsh.
Thank you. I believe that housing is a human right and that we absolutely and critically need to provide housing and to build the housing that we need. I am completely willing to and excited to work with nonprofits who are working on this issue. In fact, I'm already doing that through work with Cooperation Humboldt. Furthermore, I think that my background as a land use planner who works in a planning and building department would be very useful for these projects, because I can help to identify the ways that the planning process plays into this, how to get permits, where these should be situated, what local, state, regional, and sometimes even tribal agencies are involved with citing something like this. So yes, I am eager to work on this issue.
Time.
Thank you. Scott Bauer.
Absolutely. I think it's critical that we start housing our community members that are experiencing homelessness. And I'll work with any nonprofit. I really think it's a bigger issue than Eureka. I think we need to, get with the other cities, work with the county. County has funding that could be helpful, but we need to figure this out. There's too many people living on the streets, no access to water and power and all those things that help us have a comfortable living and a safe living. So whatever it takes, and if we need to work on how do we accelerate, the development process, the permitting, we should do that, because it's our duty to try and house everybody. And I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Thank you. Eddie Morgan.
I too, of course, am for housing. We want to take care of human beings. And in a lot of different countries, if you look at Brazil, they had different programs where they built half of the house or until a certain point and the resident themselves would complete it. So there's a lot of possibilities out there. So I would totally support plans that were well run. And hopefully would not make the mistakes that we made in the past. There was the war on poverty that started in the 60s, and they dealt a lot with housing, and there were some issues that didn't work. And I believe we tore down a lot of houses in the 80s. I was very young at that time, so that was not something I remember. But it's a very complicated issue. Yes, I would support working with nonprofits to solve this problem. And I'd be looking for very good plans and innovative thinking and thinking outside the box. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Owen.
Yes, I support anything that's going to help people get into housing, whether it's tiny houses, ocean containers, which are fairly affordable to repurpose for housing. The biggest obstacle you're going to find is not the city council saying yes, it's the local neighbors saying NIMBY, not in my backyard. Give an example, Betty Chin was donated by PG&E ocean containers down in Hillfigure Lane. That was 2 years ago. One businessman complained, and still not a homeless person's been put in those containers yet. And for me, that's a shame of our city. So I think that we need to work together. I think we need to do neighborhood outreach to people and businesses, let them know these people need housing. They're not going to be trashing your neighborhood. And then we need to do everything we can to get additional people on any sort of housing that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Moulton.
Absolutely would support safe camping and tiny houses or other creative solutions to our underhousing problem. I think that there's also some resources to be found in, for example, the work around rezoning that's happening right now, and infill development. I think that passing Measure H adds some money into the equation to possibly get the city out of debt and save us some money in the long run that we can be putting towards these things. And also Prop 15, I think passing reform on the way that we deal with property taxes will discourage people from leaving empty lots around if they're in developed areas. But we definitely need to find safe places for people to live in a healthy way. We need to be cracking down on slumlords, on people who are exploiting the renters, and we need to be protecting renters' rights whenever possible.
Thank you. Dot Yeager Wentworth.
Hi, I do support working with the nonprofits on the homeless situation here. But we really need to streamline our building department because it's so difficult to get anything out of the building department. You've got Kramer, you've got Danco, and they go into the building department and they have to pay so many fees they can't afford to have low-income housing. And the city does not have the money to build low-income housing. And that's a real shame. I think looking at Betty Chin, she's very successful. The Salvation Army is successful. The Veterans Affairs are successful. The Serenity Inn, which is Humboldt County, they're very successful. I have a brother-in-law that's homeless and he tried to get in there and they wouldn't accept him. And the tiny houses is a very big thing that we need to have. And Marianne Brady would put an entire report together for the city council and they ignored her. It's like, come on.
And that's your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our next question, unless I've forgotten someone again. Otherwise, we'll be hearing from the Northcoast Environmental Center.
Hi, my name is Carrie Tully. I am the Administrative and Development Director for the Northcoast Environmental Center, and I work with Save California Salmon for tribal water justice. My question is, in 2019, the Eureka City Council returned its portion of Tuluwat to the Wiyot tribe. If you were elected, would you also be open to restoring and returning land to the Wiyot? Thank you.
All right, we'll start with Liza Welsh.
Yes, when this happened in 2019, I was so incredibly touched. I think that returning access to the land is a critical piece of the kind of reparations that we need, especially for important sites like Tuluwat Island. And honestly, when this happened, this is one of the things that made me want to be involved in the Eureka City Council. Eureka made history. We were the first city in the United States to voluntarily do something like this. If I'm elected, yes, I am open to restoring and returning lands to the tribe.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Bill Tuttle.
I'm not real familiar with what lands would be talked about. I know that Eureka itself, I don't know about Humboldt County, has very limited land use available. If it was something that was important and we could work out some kind of a deal or whatever, I'd always be open to talking to someone. You never say, no, we don't want to hear it. It's always best to sit down, discuss something, see why the reason is, what it means to them, what it would impact on us. But you should always keep an open mind and be willing to discuss anything.
Thank you. And we'll move to Eddie Morgan.
I too have a very open mind about it, and whatever contracts that we made or were made in the past need to be honored. I think that's one thing that we don't look at, or any rules that were broken in the past. I think if I were Wiyot, I would definitely want my land back. The only hesitation, if you hear it in my voice, is I've been to certain places, be it Kosovo, or we can even talk about Catalonia, that wants to separate themselves from the state. And so I could see that happening 20 years from now. and with the limited resources. So I think it's a very complicated issue, which we need to look at carefully. But overall, if the land belongs to a certain group of people, they should have it. But we need to make sure that we check everything is going on so everybody understands that's the fair and righteous thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Matthew Owen.
Yes, I'd be willing to sit and negotiate on any sort of return of tribal lands. I'm just not sure what other lands that we have in the city of Eureka outside of Tuluwat Island that they consider tribal land. So, and then of course it'd have to go through the public process there also, but definitely always open to listen to someone. If there's an injustice in the past that we can make right, we should look into doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Moulton.
We sound all of a mind on this one. I don't think I've ever been more proud to call myself a Eureka local and to be here than when Tuluwat Island was returned to the tribe. It healed a century-long wound in this area that I think affected people more than you might think, even outside of the tribes. Just knowing that that was a part of our history and that was just open and there that whole time. I would absolutely support giving back tribal lands, working on reparations, and talking to anyone about how to have these different cultures living side by side in a way with mutual respect and understanding.
Thank you. Dot Yeager Wentworth.
Yes, I totally agree with that. We ought giving them back their land. And I think my brother, who was mayor at the time when all that started, not us taking their land, but when it started about him giving the land back, or the Eureka giving the land back, my brother was pretty involved in that because his son-in-law is a Wiyot tribe member, and he has three grandchildren now that are all Wiyot. So I definitely am in favor to giving all the Indians back their lands, because I'm Indian too. I don't look it, but I am.
Thank you. Scott Bauer.
Yeah, that was a great day when the island was returned to them. I'm in favor of all sacred sites for all tribes. Getting them those sites back. I think we can do that. But I think we need to look at it's a step-by-step process of purchasing the land, whether through a nonprofit or intermediary. Taking control of it and returning it to the tribes, just like what the Yurok tribe did on Blue Creek, on the Klamath River, returned, I think it was 7,000 acres of ancestral land. Now they're managing it for fish, for fiber. Anything we can do to help repair our relationship with the tribes is something that we should do. And I think we all agree on that.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next question. This comes to us from the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities.
Hi, my name is Colin Fisk, and I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, or CRTP. We recently released a report called Elephants in the Road, where we document how climate chaos, the rise of autonomous vehicles, and the safety crisis for pedestrians and bicyclists will shape Humboldt County's future transportation system. If you're elected, what will you do to address one or more of the challenges associated with these three major phenomena? Again, those are climate chaos, the rise of autonomous vehicles, and the safety crisis for pedestrians and bicyclists.
All right, we'll start with Bill Tuttle.
Well, bicycles are a very unique mode of transportation. A lot of people use them. The problem is our weather sometimes prevents us from doing it. I think those things should all be taken into account when we design our roads and where they are to make sure that they have the ability to ride safely. I don't like the bikes on the freeway. I will be happy when the trail is completed between Eureka and Arcata, because I think that will give them a place to ride and to go back and forth in a safe manner. As far as the roads, I think that our roads are old and we need to update them, but there again, it's about money and what and how fast we can accomplish it. It's something that's ongoing, and we'll have to keep looking at it all the time. And a lot of it has to do with the money available, but it's always a major problem and a major thing that we have to look at all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Eddie Morgan.
Well, looking at it as a public health issue, people that ride their bicycle are more likely to live more than 20 years. I'm pretty sure about that stat, or it's pretty close. So and if you look at other cities that have created walkways and bikeways, that has helped tourism. So very much for that. The autonomous cars, I think that's something that's going to happen. So we need to figure out how we're going to incorporate it. Maybe they won't go all the way into the city and things like that. And so what we can do at our level is come up with plans and things and work for grants that we think may help in that direction. So very much for the bicycle rate. We also need to think of the culture. We talked about how it's rainy and people don't like to take their bicycle to work because they're sweaty. We need to also look at that and how, with this whole COVID thing and doing all our office work from home, how that's going to impact our roads. So very much for public transport or the bicycle walkways. That is the future.
Thank you. Matthew Owen.
An interesting fact here is one of the major auto dealers came to our Rotary Club and he said, your children being born today will not be driving cars when they hit high school. That's just what the technology they're saying is going to happen. We're all shaking our heads, but we look back 20 years and how much technology has changed. So we'll see if 15, 20 years from now, we're all in driverless cars, but he's saying that's going to happen. I'm not sure about the safety feature of these things yet. So I'm waiting for Google and Microsoft and all the big boys to do their stuff. In the meantime, I'd like to say that due to COVID, I found something in my garage called a bicycle. And I went out and I found another thing called the Eureka Trails. I didn't even know they exist. On a typical weekend, I'm out doing my bike about 25, 30 miles. So I just want to say thank you for bringing up the fact that we have great bike trails. I should say great modal trails, whether you're on a bicycle, walking, taking the dog for a walk, skateboard, etc. And I wish more people would get out and enjoy them. Behind Target, along the bay, backside of the old Devil's Playground, all the way past the mall there. So I think more people need to get out and do these things and enjoy that. And that alone, instead of driving on the weekend, I just do bicycles.
That was your time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Caroline. Next, we have Katie Moulton.
So climate chaos, well, that's definitely the biggest question. The effects of climate change are happening right here, right now. We can see that the wildfires are affecting us, even though they're not burning here, they're sending people here, which is putting strains on our system. We need to be working on infrastructure that can deal with that, working on our housing situation that can deal with that. And those sorts of infrastructure things can also be working on mitigating the effects of sea level rise, restoring wetlands. All of this can tie into creating a more bikeable and walkable city. The waterfront trail is such a really excellent example. And the city has helped to coordinate not only the construction of that, but utilizing grant funding from across multiple agencies like the Young People Center for the Arts to install the art benches that are along the trail, which encourage then people to use them, which then make them safer and more accessible and more used. As far as autonomous vehicles go, you can't stop the tide of technology, and I think that it will actually be a really good thing.
That was your time. Thank you so much. And next we have Dot Yeager Wentworth.
I agree with what everybody said. Bicycles are a big thing. I think we need to, the trails are great. I would love to have ridden them like Matt, but my bike got stolen at my house the first 2 weeks we moved to Eureka. So unfortunately, my $750 bike, somebody else is enjoying it. And the autonomous vehicles, I know it's the future. It's going to happen. I've got grandkids that are born just this year. They're going to be driving those. So yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah, no, that's it.
Thank you. Scott Bauer. Scott, if you're talking, you might be muted.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. Addressing climate chaos really starts locally. I'm going to push hard to see trails built up Cooper Gulch, built up from Myrtle Avenue to Zane to St. Joe's. I think trails, additional trails. We have the great Humboldt Bay Trail. We have, our city is the leader in the community really of developing, a walkable, rideable access around town. We really got to push that. We need more trails so that that's a safety issue. Get our kids off the streets, get bikes off the streets, get us out of our vehicles, and help us reduce our need for autonomous cars if we're able to get around on foot and on bike for those that can do that. So more trails, let's do it.
Thank you. And Liza Welsh.
Thank you, Colin. I really enjoyed reading this report, Elephant in the Road, and also attending your recent presentation on your findings. So a lot of what I'm going to say is going to parrot what you wrote there, because I think you are spot on with this. When we're thinking about our infrastructure, we need to think about preparing it for the future. We need to think about how we can reallocate the paved right-of-way to create space for bicycles and pedestrians. For a while, I rode an electric scooter to my office, and it was fun, but there were certain stretches of road and certain intersections that were scary, either because people drove too fast or because there were unprotected intersections, unprotected cross points. We need to look at how things like that are going to affect people using bicycles, scooters, other non-vehicular transportation. For the autonomous vehicles, I agree with you that we need to look at how they will interact with the infrastructure, and that smart infrastructure, things like sensors placed into curbs, is going to be necessary.
That was your time. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to move on to our next question, and it comes to us from Cooperation Humboldt. Believe we have a video coming. Gotcha. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read this question. From Cooperation Humboldt, do you support policies that would promote and strengthen the development of worker co-ops, favorable tax, procurement policies, investment loan funds, training, research? And would you be willing to work with local organizations incubating worker-owned cooperatives? We're going to start with Eddie Morgan.
I really like this question. Am I unmuted? Yes. I really like this question. And the thing that reached me is the research part. We need to think in the future. So the short answer here is yes. Do I support the policies, training, research, investment loans? I think, when we talk about a lot of the renting and people not, we never ask what our banks are doing. And I think they also have a very important thing to contribute. And there's been lots of research about microloans and different kinds of loans. So, and we talk about equity and people that can get loans. So yes, I agree with what this question has. And yes, I would be willing to work with local organization for incubating. Another word I love, incubating with worker-owned cooperatives. We need to find jobs for the future for our younger people, and having that stuff and having that cooperation with the university and the CR and all the great things that they're doing, I think we can provide jobs for younger people and have a better future. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Owen.
Sorry, getting off mute. Yes, I'd be in favor of something like this. Currently, we have the Headwaters Funds, REDEC, the Redwood Regional Economic Development Corp, and SBA loans available for small people, I should say small businesses. We don't have a lot of say over taxes because that's state and federal, but what we do have say over is streamlining the permitting process if a business is going to bring jobs to our local community. That's one thing I'd like to see the city 5 and 10 year plan doing. What are they doing to bring additional jobs to our town? And if someone's going to be doing that, whether it's 2 people or they're bringing 200 people here, I'd like to see us streamline that permitting process so we get more people gainfully employed. That'd be my answer. Anything to help additional jobs in Humboldt County and especially Eureka, I'm all in favor of.
Thank you. Katie Moulton.
I definitely support the idea of worker-owned co-ops and stand with organized labor just in general. I think that the city can streamline the permitting process for anything that brings in new jobs and give favor to unionized jobs and to worker-owned and worker co-op businesses. And I think that we can be, when we spend our public money, we should always be spending it on the best possible option, the best moral and ethical option. And I would consider that to be always going with union labor, going with worker co-ops, going with worker-owned businesses, going with people that are paying prevailing wages or living wages. So I think the city can be spending money in that direction when money needs to be spent. And I think that the city can ease the way for more equitable employment options.
Thank you. Dot Yeager Wentworth.
I definitely agree with everything everybody has said. We definitely need something for our children. My oldest son is a school teacher and he worked out in Las Vegas because he lost his job in Eureka. My second son is a paramedic. He's pretty well set. Yeah, and that, we just need more jobs here. So that's it.
Thank you. Scott Bauer.
Of course, I'm in favor of worker co-ops. You know, it has a long history in our country. I mean, the Grange system, it was essentially farmers cooperating to, you know, get their products out, and that's since, you know, has gone away, unfortunately, and needs to be brought back. When workers have ownership in their businesses, they're more just. There's better pay. I have a background in labor. I've been serving on a union board for over 12 years, and you know, when we work together and when the workers are together, they produce better products. They take care of each other. So however we can assist worker co-ops in our community and in our region, we should do that. It'll create businesses, create jobs, better paying jobs, and it's something that I'd be happy to help with in the future.
Thank you. Lisa Welch.
Thank you. I am really excited about worker co-ops. I think that businesses that are collectively owned and democratically managed are better for workers. They tend to pay workers more. They tend to have lower employee turnover. Yeah, so this is a model that I would like to move towards. I too am a union person. I'm a member of AFSCME 1684. I'm part of our bargaining team, and endorsed by the Central Labor Council. I think that this concept of worker co-op and the concept of organized labor go together very well. We can have unionization within a worker co-op furthermore, and some specific fields I would like to see worker co-ops operate in include the cannabis industry and the ancillary support services around that, the circular economy, which is where a business is manufacturing new goods out of locally sourced recycled materials. And then also technology, something like a makerspace using 3D printers.
For the time. Thank you so much. And Bill Tuttle.
I'm for just about anything that creates jobs. I know that employee-owned businesses, that, like they said, the people have more respect. They care about their company. They have pride in it. It does help. I mean, what the city can do, I don't know, but we have to help these small entrepreneurs and these companies get back on their feet and start to flourish. I have a business, and I know that we need more jobs. We need more jobs for these people to stay here, for the kids to stay here, and whatever it would take to help these people get on their feet and figure this out. I'm all for it. I'd be happy to help out.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our next question. This comes to us from the Northcoast People's Alliance and Humboldt and Del Norte Central Labor Council.
My name is Caroline Griffith, and this question is on behalf of the Northcoast People's Alliance and the Humboldt and Del Norte Central Labor Council. With so many candidates running for city council in this election, there's the possibility that one of you will win without receiving the support of the majority of voters. Measure C, which was referred to the voters by the current city council, would enact ranked choice voting, a reform that ensures majority support and has been shown to increase voter engagement, candidate diversity, and civility in campaigning. Do you support Measure C? Why or why not?
Great, and we'll go ahead and start with Matthew Owen.
I'm not in favor of Measure C, simply because I believe in one vote, one person. Bill Clinton was elected president without the majority of votes. George Bush was elected president without the majority of votes. So although our system's not perfect, I do believe at the end of the day, whoever has the most votes should be the winner. And I said this last night during our League of Women Voters thing. There's 5 people running here in the 4th Ward. Realistically, someone can get 30% of the vote and take this election. So at the end of the day, whoever has the most votes when they're all counted should be the winner of the seat. And that's what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Moulton.
I say yes on Measure C. I think ranked choice voting creates a more accessible system. It makes it so that, you know, you can't have people splitting the conservative vote or splitting the progressive vote. Most people are somewhere in the middle, and first past the post voting just polarizes. It just creates the red team and the blue team. It will, like, statistically, behaviorally, inevitably push us out to the edges, which is not where we want to be. We should be able to have people with nuanced opinions, with you know, that are somewhere in the middle of that bell curve that can actually win an election. Instead of people choosing their candidate based on who they think they will win, they can choose their candidates in order of how much they agree with them. So they don't have to make a choice based on playing the game. They can actually choose someone whose principles align with their own.
Thank you. Dot Yeager-Wentworth.
Yeah, I just found out about that measure today. I was watching a video on it, and I'm confused as to the way it would work. And I think it's premature to have it on the November ballot. I feel like the city's pushing it at us because it's very complicated. And I don't think a lot of Eurekans will understand what Measure C is all about. And that's my biggest problem with it. When I was reading, yes, I do agree with it, but on the other part, I don't agree with it because I think it's against our constitutional rights. But this is 2020, so we probably need to redo the Constitution or part of it. Yeah, so that's where I stand on it. I'm kind of in the middle.
Thank you. Scott Bauer.
Yes, on Measure C. And we have one of the most least diverse democracy in the world, where 2 parties control the system, and we need to fix that. And that starts with Measure C. You know, it's about time, and I personally think it should be adopted at the national level. But however, we got to do that. This is how we get more parties involved, more voices, more opinions in this system. I think it's a great thing. And realistically, I think the next step after we pass Measure C is to pass public financing of campaigns. I think candidates like all of us shouldn't be chasing money. We should be focused on the issues, and we should be doing our best to listen to our community members and see what they want. And I think public financing is next. And I hope some of you out there let's figure out a way to do it. Let's start here and let's push for it, you know, across the nation. That's where I'm going. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Liza Welch.
I support Measure C. I think that Measure C would be good for democracy for some of the reasons that other candidates have discussed. It prevents vote splitting. It allows people to rank their candidates by order of preference. It moves us away from the two-party system. And then finally, it could allow cost savings because it could prevent the cost of runoffs and you know, having to count votes again. So yeah, I am all for it, and I wish we already had it, frankly. Furthermore, I do agree with Scott that campaign finance reform is also necessary. Both publicly funded campaigns or cap on campaign spending. As a progressive candidate, I have vowed not to take donations from businesses, but rather only from individuals and union PACs.
That is your time. Thank you. Bill Tuttle.
Oh, I'm like Dot. I just ran into this last night and I've been looking into it and I am very confused also as to actually how it works. I haven't found enough information on it as to how you work your way down and rank the people as it gets to lower terms. So I'm not sure it's a good thing. I'm not sure it's a bad thing. I'd have to do more looking into it before I really made a quick decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Eddie Morgan.
I too support Measure C and very much for ranked choice. Not only has it been around for a long time, Maine is going to use it for the presidential election. It's been in Holland for a long time. The military practices ranked choice in the decision-making process. It's a process that depolarizes and gets the biggest group of people to agree on something. So it has so many advantages that, and I can see it's counterintuitive to a lot of people, but if you practice it and look at it, and I really like what Caddy said, and is about the bell curve. It encompasses that the larger group of people, and that's what democracies are about. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move to our next question. This comes from Move to Amend.
I'm Eileen McGee, a Eureka.
The Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court codified in law that corporations have the same constitutional rights as natural persons and can give unlimited amounts of money to political candidates. Question: will you pledge to support the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that states corporations are not natural persons, do not have constitutional rights, and money is not a form of free speech? If you do not support this amendment, please tell us why.
Thank you. We'll start with Dot Yeager-Wentworth. Pardon me.
Yeah, last night I went with Dot Yeager because it was just a lot easier for the person that was doing this. Oh, okay. Yes, I do support what she just said. I think the money thing is a major issue with all politics. And that's about it. That's about all I have to really say about everything. I do agree with her, though.
Thank you. Scott Bauer.
Oh, absolutely. I support this. It's the system has been so corrupted by money and corporations. You know, we're struggling, and I like to say, you know, I know we all probably just found out about, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing, you know, a great justice, and you know, the Supreme Court. You know, there's so much undue influence in our politics, and we really have to work to get money out. That's where it starts. And again, like I said, we should have public financing of campaigns and just eliminate money completely from anybody, any individual, corporations. Let's do that, and our democracy will flourish if we can do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Liza Welch.
Yes, I would unequivocally support the We the People amendment. I agree. We need to get money out of politics. Corporations are not people. We need to put people first. It's time. It's been too long. I believe there was a second part to that question, as it was written on the screen, that asked, what would you do to support worker-owned co-ops? Is that correct?
I think that's the wrong thing that was on the screen.
Let me grab this. It is, yeah, the citizen's decision by the Supreme Court codified in law that corporations have the same constitutional rights. Did tech support, do you have this current question available to pop back up?
That's okay. I think I've adequately answered it, but if any of the other candidates would like to read it.
Thank you. We are going to move to, let's see, this is Bill.
No questions?
We'll move on to Bill Tuttle.
Yes, I believe corporations have a place in business, but as for voting and in politics, no, they do not, and they should not be in there. And yes, I would love to see a set limit of money that could be put out by the government or by whatever, just a limit to keep all the money out of the elections and let the people get to know the people without having to do all this other stuff. And I would support that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Eddie Morgan.
I too very much with everybody else. Corporations are not people, and I challenge somebody to explain that to somebody from that doesn't know the background on how corporations are people, and money in large amounts has a tendency to corrupt things. So I don't know what to say more about it. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I would definitely support organizations that would bring things back power to the people. So yes.
Thank you. Matthew Owen.
Well, I believe the 2010 Supreme Court ruling on Citizens United was probably one of the worst rulings in our country's history. Like everyone else is saying, we need to get the corporation and special interest money out of politics. We have one presidential candidate who's already spent $1 billion, that's with a B, so far, and we're still 5 weeks out. I find that frightening. On the local level, at least, I like to think you could do more with shoe leather and making some phone calls than what we're doing, just blowing money on the national level. I too believe that corporations are not people. If so, many corporations should have died during COVID, and I see the federal government stepping in to save them. So if they're people, let them die. And we didn't do that. Not since Lehman Brothers is the last one I can remember they let die. So I think we should support something like this. Unfortunately, it's going to take a Supreme Court ruling. And with Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying today, Mitch McConnell's going to be trying to jam someone through in the next few weeks. So we took a loss today for the good guys.
Thank you so much. Katie Moulton.
I agree that corporations are not people. If they were people, then they would have the rights to speech, but they would also be liable for their actions, criminally liable. So until I see CEOs and board members and stakeholders and shareholders of corporations serving criminal sentences for criminal behavior, then they do not deserve the rights of citizens. I too have pledged to not take any money from businesses or corporations locally or at all, relying instead on individuals, political PACs, and labor unions. Yeah, that's it. Keep money out of politics. Absolutely.
Thank you. We are going to move to our next question. This one comes to us from Healthcare for All Humboldt and Physicians for a National Health Program.
Eureka resident, and I'm Eileen McGee, a Eureka resident, and I'm representing Healthcare for All, Physicians for a National Health Program, Humboldt. In 2017, Humboldt County spent more than $18 million in healthcare plans for its 2,377 employees. Studies have shown that about 1/3 of all payments to private health insurance companies is wasted on profit, overhead, bureaucratic duplication, and unnecessary complexity. Obviously, this applies to other government agencies as well and could provide huge savings to the city of Eureka. What's your position on removing the health insurance burden from the city of Eureka by supporting, by resolution, the establishment of a single-payer, universal, equitable healthcare system in the state of California? Please give the reasons for your answer. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with Katie Moulton.
Absolutely single payer all the way. I think that it is unethical. I think that it's amoral to bring profit motive into a business that saves people's lives. When you talk about profit motive, the only thing that insurance companies and healthcare companies can do is protect their shareholders. It is in their best interest to do that and not to protect patients. It creates inequities, it creates inefficiencies. I think that if California can pull off a single payer system to expand Medi-Cal to all citizens or something like that, then we should definitely try and do that. When you look at healthcare costs, it does end up being more efficient, just like Eureka City Schools has decided to feed all of the kids, because it turns out that it's just easier and safer and cheaper that way.
Thank you. Dot Yeager Wentworth.
Well, considering that I'm paying $20,000 a month for a prescription that's keeping me alive, I definitely find the healthcare system needs to be revamped. I thank God every single day that I have Champ VA because they pay the $20,000. We definitely need a single pay medical for everybody. I don't know if universal Medi-Cal is the answer. Somebody has to pay for everybody's medical. There's nothing we can do. We can't give everybody free schools, free medical. Somebody has to pay. So that's all I had to say about that.
Thank you. Scott Bauer.
Yeah, single payer now. I think one of the biggest drivers of bankruptcies in the US is, someone has an accident, ends up in the emergency room with no insurance or poor insurance, and they end up losing everything. That's really an equity issue. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have, an HMO, and I still pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month to cover my family. And that money could be better spent in, my children, my two boys going to college, investing in their college. And instead, we're spending it on healthcare. And I'm fortunate to even have it. So single payer needs to happen. It'll save the country, I think, trillion or some dollars. It's ridiculous. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, we need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Welch.
Thank you. Yeah, this is an issue that hits close to my heart. When I was 24, my best friend, who was also 24, who was an uninsured person and was working in the gig economy, was diagnosed with brain cancer. They had to go through surgery and chemotherapy. Watching them navigate the healthcare system as an uninsured person and watching how that medical debt has followed them for years, it's just terrible, heartbreaking. We need Medicare for all. We need a universal single payer system. I am privileged to be a county employee and have health care, dental care, vision care, and I still have a very difficult time finding medical professionals here who will take my insurance. That is ridiculous. Furthermore, I don't believe that any person should have to fear that losing their job is going to mean that they also lose their health care. That's unacceptable.
Thank you. Bill Tuttle. Sorry, Bill, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I agree. I believe everybody should have a healthcare program that they can depend on. Other countries in the world have a way of doing it. I don't know why we can't. I know that years ago, medical was not for profit, but they changed it. And there's just too many people out there with all these things. And now with all these disasters and all the other stuff, our medical needs are going to be even more. And it would be a nice way for people to know they could get health care and live good, productive lives without, like you say, going bankrupt or going without everything. And as a kid grows up and moves out of the house, he can't afford health care. So yes, something needs to be done. And I wish we had some form of single payer health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Eddie Morgan.
I too am in the same boat. Single payer is the way to go. Look at other countries. If you look at Switzerland, I believe they had a similar system as ours until the 90s or early 2000. They switched to a single payer. Their system is doing much better. All Western countries that have good health systems have single payer systems. And just to be the only one that doesn't does not make any sense to me. It's the bankruptcy. I mean, do we really want people to get sick and lose their house? That's not correct. So I'm in the same boat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I believe that moves us to we've got Matthew Owen.
No, I'd like to say we don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system in this country. Most people don't go to a physician until they actually have some sort of problem going on with them. Instead of doing annual checkups, talking about nutrition, I hate the word diet, let's use the word nutrition, and putting in exercise in there also. Second thing, if we can afford to insure people who are 65 or older, the highest risk people out there, why can't we afford to insure people who are 64 and younger? When you can answer that question, I'll get behind you. Thank you.
Thank you. We are coming to our final question, and it comes to us from 350 Humboldt.
My name is Haley Connors Keith, and I am representing 350 Humboldt. Our question is the following. To fight climate change, we need to decarbonize our electrical grid by building renewable energy infrastructure, such as offshore wind, transition, transportation, and buildings to an all-electric before 2045, and reduce the amount of driving that Humboldt County residents do. Doing this would create local green jobs and help employ people who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. Will you pledge to build community support for these goals and work toward achieving them in an equitable way, guaranteeing green jobs for those that want them?
All right, we'll start with Scott Bauer.
Yeah, absolutely. And the unfortunate part about climate change and climate chaos is we don't really have 40 years or 30 years. We're talking a decade to drastically change how we live, how we power our homes and our businesses. We need green energy, and the city should take the lead on that, whatever it takes to get more solar, more wind. We need more transmission. We can build an offshore wind platform, and have a lot of windmills out there. It's a great spot, but we don't have the transmission capacity. We could use it here, but the costs are super high. So realistically, we need to have large scale projects that are government funded, take the profit out of it, and power our cities off of renewable energy. We really have a decade to do this, and we got to start now. And I will do my best to get it going in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Liza Welch.
It's critically important that we act on this now. As I discussed earlier, I ride an electric scooter. I also drive an electric car. We need infrastructure for electric vehicles. We need charging for cars, also for bikes and scooters. We need to invest in our transit system. We should electrify our transit system. Another thing, recently I was reading about how the city of Arcata got grant funding to put battery storage in a wastewater treatment facility, and that installing this battery storage is actually going to save something like $20,000 a year. So from a fiscal perspective, this is also a great idea. I agree that we need to get these types of solar panels and battery storage on our municipal buildings. And, you know, wherever possible, I think we should look for grant funding to do that.
Thank you. Bill Tuttle.
I agree. As time goes on, as you see, when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden there were no cars on the roads and people were out doing it, even in Venice, the water cleared up, the skies cleared up, and we're just slowly killing ourselves. And we've got to move quickly to do something to bring in more renewable energy and get rid of the gas and the things. And I know it's expensive and how, but yes, like Lisa said, we can look for grants, and there are programs out there, and there are people willing to come in and help us do these things, but it's something that we need to look at and look at quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Eddie Morgan.
I also too agree, and I like to put my my money where my mouth is. In 2008, I bought solar panels. In 2012, I bought an entirely electric car, a Nissan Leaf, which is a small car. When I have the chance, I use my bicycle, and I have the best composting worms, I believe, in Humboldt County. So I totally support it. I'm on the Energy Commission, and we've looked into Title 24, looking at insulation and all the different things that we can do to save energy and not create carbon. So very much behind it, working on it, and would support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Owen.
While I'm all in favor of renewable energy, I'd like to see the cost of it become more cost efficient. I'm in the real estate industry, and I'm working now with a client who just spent $36,000 installing solar. That's a lot of money to spend just to get a couple $100 savings for your PG&E bill. When I did the math for him, the payback period was in almost decades. So I think we could do, as a country, we should be doing more to promote solar out there. I'd also like to see more wind energy projects. Our county recently turned down the TerraGen project. That was supposed to have been clean green energy. And now we have another private group coming to do offshore wind, about 10 miles offshore. But when I went to a meeting they had, they said that's at least 5, if not 10 years away from happening. I want to add one thing to Bill's comment is during the pandemic, both China and India had clean blue skies. People didn't get clustered under smog and didn't have to wear masks. Well, they had to wear masks, but not because they couldn't breathe the air. But we can do much better as humans across the planet with renewable energy. And I think anything the city could do to help with that, I'm 100% in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Moulton.
Green energy and renewable energy, green jobs, absolutely the way to go forward for sure. Fortunately, solar power is becoming cheaper, easier, better. Decentralized energy production can create greater equity and access to information and access to conveniences. If you can get power up on the hill without having to haul in diesel fuels. I think that the city can be easing way for projects like the wind farm and negotiating benefits for the city of Eureka when something like that goes in. I think that we can be creating solar power incentives for new buildings, whether that's tax incentive or a financing incentive. The city has financing available programs to help first-time home buyers if they incorporate a green energy into something like that where they get an even better rate or even more discounts or something for having green energy into that house. And I think that the city can pledge as part of a general pledge to engage in best practices to use green energy whenever possible. So if energy systems are being replaced or being upgraded, that they should be green energy.
Thank you so much. Dot Yeager Wentworth.
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button and I got something else up there. The city needs to look at our solar. You know, when Frank was on the city council back in 1990 something, I think, the city lights that that are here every night cost something like $50,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, and they could all be solar. So that would be an instant savings for us. The city really needs to help people with their solar panels. and the batteries. My sister just put solar in her house in Reno. It costs $20,000 for the Tesla batteries. They had a 2-year waiting list. It's unreal. And solar in Nevada, definitely. So I think California definitely needs to look at more solar.
Thank you so much. That actually concludes our forum. That is all of our questions. I want to thank everyone who tuned in on all of the different platforms. I want to thank all of the community groups who participated, and thank all of these candidates so much for caring about our community and for running and for being here this evening. Mail-in ballots go out on October 5th. Look out for those. This video can be found on the Northcoast People's Alliance Facebook page, also on YouTube in Access Humboldt's channel. These will be available going forward, so you can share them with people and spread these ideas and information so that we have a well-educated group voting this year. Thanks so much to all of you again, and we will see you next Friday for the Arcata City Council forum. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for putting up with all of our fun Zoom adventures.
Thanks for having us.